Well, good morning and welcome those of you that are online to the Montgomery County Environmental Services Division of Solid Waste. We welcome you to the virtual portion of our presentation today. We're excited about today's agenda, and we're very thankful for Go Zero for wanting to put together this kind of webinar program and also to provide some real live case studies that are being done by some communities, very successful programs, and then also our processor. So our purpose today in having you all here is to really kind of give you some ideas on how to set up drop-off programs in your community for food waste composting. We want to inspire you with some of the information that you're going to hear from communities. We're going to debunk some of the myths that you've heard about food waste and the problems with it, and I think those presenters from both of our communities will help us with that. And we also then want to provide you with some really pragmatic ideas on how to set one of these programs up and working with Go Zero. I know a lot of you are municipalities, and sometimes you have to go through bidding processes or getting quotes, and here in Montgomery County we do have a few, but Go Zero is a community here locally that they're throughout central and southwestern Ohio, and have done a great job in servicing their customers. So we want to talk that. So today's agenda is, I'm going to invite up here shortly David. He is the CEO and Executive Director for Go Zero. He's going to really get into a deep dive of the drop-off program, the collection that Go Zero provides and how that's going to work. And then Jameson, also with Go Zero, is going to kind of host a panel discussion and moderate that with the two communities, the City of Oxford and the City of Upper Arlington, and our guests here. Then we're going to have Bob from the Ohio Department of Rehabilitations and Corrections talk a little bit about their facility. They're actually the processors of a lot of this waste. And so he's going to provide you with a little bit of behind the scenes of some of the things that they do with the Department of Corrections. Pretty exciting stuff and very beneficial to folks that are in these programs, helping them train and prepare them for when they come out to be able to work in the environmental field. So we're excited about that. And then Dave, I'm going to finish up with a little discussion about grants, and then Dave's going to kind of close us out for that. And we'll be taking questions online as we go through the program. So welcome, and with that, I'll turn it over to David.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, John. Again, grateful to have you all here. Thanks for joining those in the room, those on the stream. I'm going to use this cart as another place to put things. And hopefully this will be something that we're able to make available online for folks after the fact. The goal here today is to try to share a little bit of information, and specifically what I'm going to try to do is share Go Zero's origin story, some of why we do what we do, how we do what we do, and then touch on the beginnings of how to get started with a municipal drop-off station, and speak to a couple questions we got from folks who've registered for the time here this morning. I can have a tendency to be long-winded, so I'm going to try to keep it to the point, but Go Zero, I think our story is very much a case of see a need, fill a need. We're not for profit. My family, Andre Farms, 30 minutes west of Toledo, has been involved in composting for several decades, and it was in 2013, 2014 that I first became aware of a need out there where folks were saying things like, if we only had someone to haul it away, meaning that restaurants and schools, there were individuals out there in the community who were really interested in composting, but there wasn't a lot of infrastructure for them. There's been a grassroots movement for a long time, people pedaling bicycles, collecting 5-gallon pails, door to door, one at a time, making an impact there. And there's been a movement, contemporaries of my family's operation, who have tended to operate more than an industrial scale, one truckload, one roll-off box. at a time. But there wasn't a lot of opportunity out there for folks on Main Street America who wanted to do composting. And so the rest is history. We got organized, and by 2016 we're operational. And the name of the game for us is, we would love to provide disposal services to anybody that would have us. The core of what we do, it looks a lot like document destruction, but instead of shredding paper, we have a custom vocational truck that travels around. We build routes of 10 to 20 locations at a time, and the truck will empty the containers that schools, restaurants, workplaces, anybody will have us, puts their compostable material there, empty it out, clean it out, weather permitting, reline it. As you can see, we'll take a look here later in the morning at the carts that we offer. We'll come back and see you next week. We'll make sure the material goes to a composting facility near you, and pretty proud about being able to provide some data and feedback. From time to time there is non-compostable material that does show up in the carts, I think Jameson here with us today is kind of at the center of making sure that there's good feedback, so that if there's ever any issues, it's the sort of thing where we're able to provide you some help in coaching into the organization in terms of making sure that the compostable material goes in the carts, non-compostable material doesn't. So the core of what we offer is this disposal service. In 2018, we were getting a lot of feedback to the effect that folks were interested in a residential option. We got our start again with restaurants, schools, workplaces, really commercial Main Street America type services, but we didn't have a residential offering. And while curbside is kind of a goal state, something we'd love to do, we've put proposals out. We don't have any communities currently engaged in that sort of thing. One of the things that we've been excited to get a chance to I'll stop short of saying perfect it, but develop, is this idea of a drop-off station, which is what we're here to talk about this morning. It got started off on a member supported basis, where individuals would pay $10 a month, and we still have these programs in place across our footprint. And individuals pay $10 a month to participate where there's not a municipally sponsored program. But pretty quickly we found that municipalities, other leaders in the community, were ready to sponsor a couple carts, and rather than the material, the compostable items originating in a commercial kitchen, the compostable items originate one household at a time, where individuals, rather than the last mile, in the case of delivery and infrastructure, this is the first mile coming from homes. People are willing, just like a recycling station of the 1990s, to bring their kitchen scraps to a central point, whether it's a city service center or a fire station or a community center in the neighborhood, in context of the neighborhood. People are willing to bring their material to that location so that our truck can come around and make sure it gets to a composter from there. So trying to make sure that I'm staying on script. 2018 was our first community drop-off point. Since then, we've grown, and there are over a dozen across all of western and central Ohio. That is our footprint today, and we're excited about trying to find individuals who would love to have us establish more of these types of locations. The list of questions goes on in terms of what's acceptable or not. We pride ourselves on being broad spectrum, in that we are able to receive meat and dairy, compostable plastics that are certified, paper products. One of the questions that had come in early on was questions around pizza boxes and browns and things like this, that we are able to take those sorts of things when it comes to paper products. Even waxed paper products we're able to compost. Plastic coated, not so much, but certainly wax coated is something that is we are possible. It is possible to compost. So I digress. Down into the weeds we go. But at the end of the day, super excited about having been able to provide a service across all of western and central Ohio. Always looking for opportunities to grow beyond that. Excited about getting a chance to partner with John in Montgomery County and helping the municipalities here within Montgomery County itself look at establishing municipally sponsored stations. And let me make sure I'm looking at my notes. Yeah, we're grateful for the opportunity to share with you this morning. To take a quick look at some of the questions that had come in for the folks that had signed up. Again, thank you for registering for this morning's event. The way that the municipally sponsored drop-off station tends to look is we'll partner with you, figure out, you know, as few as one, as many as 6 carts are typically a good fit to get started. Walk you through what it looks like to communicate with the community about getting the word out that there is a program getting started off. Sometimes we have municipalities that will source their own buckets and their own gear and their own signage. Sometimes we're able to help with that. And then we place carts, kick the program off, get the word out, and individuals will bring the material from home, drop it in the carts, and then week over week our truck will come by and pick it up. And so in lieu of a curbside program, it works pretty well. Geographic area, all of western and central Ohio. Cost for a program, it can be as little as about $100 a month. Typically we recommend something closer to $250. But you know, again, part of the beauty of why it is we're wanting to have this conversation here today is in a very unique year where, you know, maybe there were other programs that have gone by the wayside. There's opportunities to try to make use of budget money at the municipal level before year end, or possibly looking ahead to 2021, what could we do? This is the kind of program that really plants a flag and is the sort of thing that can have a positive impact on a community while not having to necessarily be something that's super high touch. It could be a no contact kind of program that everybody can be proud about, moving in a positive direction. So that's some of how that works. Contamination rates, I think we spoke to that in terms of, you know, we do have a tolerance for some contamination, but we typically work real hard at trying to coach away from that as quickly as possible, speaking to things like plastic bags or rubber gloves, aluminum foil. These are the sorts of things that show up often that typically with a little bit of coaching is possible to get the word out about keeping those things out of the bins. Pests and managing nuisance items. Another point of pride for us is the fact that, you know, our lime green carts, they're watertight for all intents and purposes. They're airtight. It's not a tight seal, but when the lid sits on the body of the cart, it tends to keep odors in and pests out. We have found that really it's the sort of thing where, because there's more mindfulness on location with our customers, it tends to be less of a nuisance. We're actually causing dumpster areas and loading docks to become more tidy because of the program, which is one of the things that's super cool. So happy to talk more about management techniques and things like that for those who are interested. What do you do in terms of getting the word out, in terms of folks understanding why composting is even important? I think my go-to in helping to relay the good news of composting and why it's impactful is that you know, food waste, depending on what report, what piece of research you look at, can account for 12 to as much as 25% of what goes into the landfill, and that's the component that really creates odors and can be a nuisance and difficult to manage in the context of a traditional landfill stream. When it does go to the landfill, you know, landfills are really good at encapsulating and entombing what goes into those landfill, keeping it isolated, and what happens is it goes septic, or it becomes anaerobic. There's no oxygen, which is a very unnatural circumstance for food waste to be trying to decompose in. What ends up happening is, in the context of a landfill, methane will be produced. And it's kind of it's a little technical, but I think on my last point before we pitch it over to James and the panel, well, and Katie, right? In the context of a landfill environment, there's not a lot of oxygen, and you'll get methane molecules which are actually more impactful to the environment than CO2. If you've ever walked through the forest during a rain shower, it smells good. The aroma that leaves will produce, that's CO2 that you smell. That's a healthy smell, right? That's the sort of thing that can happen with composting in an aerobic, where there is oxygen happening, type of environment. When food waste goes to the landfill, that natural process isn't allowed to happen. And so what ends up happening is we're filling up our landfills. It's creating these methane emissions that are having an impact on our environment. When really it's possible, in the context of composting, we're able to work with nature and allow that organic matter to be mixed with oxygen so that it does break down in a more healthy kind of way. So, you know, I like to say that we're always grateful for landfills and the infrastructure that we have in this country, but we're excited about getting a chance to take that and try to build upon it. and take the good and do even better. And if we didn't have landfills, we'd have different problems that we needed to solve. But with composting, we have an opportunity to stand on the shoulders of those who've come before us, so to speak, and make the world a better place. So, with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Jameson Thornton, who will be sharing with us, along with some veteran municipally sponsored drop-off station program coordinators, about their program, things that have gone well, tips and tricks, why it's valuable to their community, why they recommend others try it in their communities, and I think that's what I have to show this morning. So thanks so much for your time. Jameson, look to you, sir.
Thank you, David. My name is Jameson Thornton, the operations manager for GoZero. I am sitting here with two operators from some of our veteran compost partners, Katie Reese with the City of Upper Arlington and Dave Trelevin with the City of Oxford. We're going to just kind of learn a little bit about their programs and how their programs work, how long they've been doing it, and some of the tips and tricks that they have learned over the time of operating these in partnership with us. So I think we'll start with, we'll just go down the line and do an introduction of the program and the city you're with, and take it from there. So, Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Reese of the City of Upper Arlington. We are a suburb of Columbus, so out of Franklin County. About 13,500 households in Upper Arlington. We started our food waste program in 2019 with GoZero. In 2018, we made a pretty dramatic switch in our trash system. So we were on the sticker system, kind of a pay-as-you-throw system, and we were transitioning from that contract to a new contract. And in that transition, we had a lot of communication with our residents. And a lot of the things that we heard from them, or one of the things we heard from them was, when can we have the food waste program? When can we talk about, collecting food waste, either curbside or having some sort of system? So then that's how we ended up with our program. So we've had it since about May of 2019, and things are going great.
Hello, I'm Dave Trelevin. I'm the environmental specialist with the City of Oxford, Southwest Ohio. Oxford's been doing food waste composting since April of 2019. We're just a little bit ahead of you, but not by much. It was started with at the suggestion and the motivation of one of our city council members, a lady by the name of Chantel Ragu, who pretty much spearheaded the process. Right now we're running approximately 6 of those waste wheeler totes, running about 2/3 capacity at any given week. Periodically we hit all 6 of them, but not all the time. In that time period, I believe the community has accepted it and is very enthusiastic about it. We're averaging over 600 pounds of collected wastes each week. I believe in that time we're up to, just this last collection on Monday, I think put us over 50,000 pounds since the project started in the beginning of April of 2019.
Thank you. I guess as two of our most veteran locations, you guys both run very different types of locations. And so could you, starting with Katie just because you're closer, tell me a little bit about disbursement throughout the city and how you have approached cart location and placement?
Yes. So our cart placement has been kind of a trial by error of sorts. So we started with, we had a location at our municipal building, which is kind of centrally located-ish in Upper Arlington, and then we had another location when we first started was at our service center, which is geographically very, very close to Upper Arlington, but it is literally on the other side of the train tracks, and so nobody comes over there. So that one didn't get a lot of, it wasn't getting a lot of use, so we moved it to one of our parks, That has worked very well. And then just our one that's more centrally located obviously just gets a ton of use. And so we have since added a third location with a total of, what do we have, 17
That's right.
containers now? Yeah, so we're not at capacity. We were kind of at capacity for quite a bit of time, but now that we've added 6 more containers, we're not quite there yet, but we'll get there.
And you, as a city, you generally build enclosures around your,
Yes.
at least for the new one.
So our first 2 locations we picked, where we put them were obviously at our city locations, so somewhere where there's always somebody kind of around to keep an eye on it. And then we also tried to find a place, excuse me, that was next to a dumpster enclosure, not for any other purpose than just it was kind of just made sense and it was more convenient. So we built enclosures kind of around those or next to those dumpster enclosures, and that seemed to help as well I think I've seen less contamination and less trash at the 2 locations that are next to dumpsters. And then the one that we just recently built at one of our parks is not next to a dumpster enclosure, and I ended up having to add some trash cans just around it because I was seeing a lot of I think people leaving the park or just getting out of their cars. They see the enclosure, they're not putting the trash in the containers, but they're just kind of like throwing it on the ground near it. So we just added some trash cans, and that helped. So
Okay.
yeah.
I know, Dave, your location is generally
It's
very
open
clean.
24/7. Very occasionally we'll end up with containers, plastic bags, things of that nature that people have brought their food wastes in and leave them there. When we initially wanted the program to start, we were looking at 3 locations throughout the city. Oxford's only about 8 square miles. We have 3,600 residential refuse and water accounts, so we're noticeably smaller. I think we're 23,000 people. But we started out with the idea of having 3 separate locations with 2 waste wheelers at each location. And with Miami University, with Talawanda School Board, which is the school district for Oxford area, people were hesitant to allow property use because they didn't know what the issues might be. So we ended up with all 6 of the containers at our streets and maintenance facility, which is central part of the town, but on the southern border. At first, we started out with the same idea of control. That was within the locked gates, so people could only access it. Ideally, we started out Saturday morning, and that became a little bit cumbersome. People then figured out that the gates were open during the week, so they started to come in during the week. That made us a little apprehensive. We have dump trucks, loaders, backhoes going in and out of that facility, and the concern was potential for accident. So at that point, we talked with Miami University, and we had some history then, and we were able to say we are not having litter problems, we're not having trash problems, we're not having animal problems. So they allowed us to move it onto a portion of their property. It's across from the Oxford Township maintenance and police department, so there is some visibility. It's by the garage that uses the buses, or the buses use the garage, the Talawanda School District. So there's activity around, and 6 of them sitting on a corner, and we haven't had an issue thus far. And really, 2 things I think works for us. One is it is kind of on the edge of town, so people kind of purposely have to go there. There is an old, the old Talawanda High School used to be in that location, so the athletic field is still there. People go there to run and walk, and power walk, things of that nature. But it's really not on the beaten trail. So if people are going there, they tend to be there for the food scraps. And in chatting with the folks from the Oxford Township maintenance building, they've commented on they were amazed at the amount of use. There's often you'll go by and there'll be a vehicle there unloading. So I really don't have numbers on our participation. I've made a guesstimate at perhaps 400 people. I know when the students came back from Miami University, I received at least a half a dozen phone calls the first week asking about where it was and how to participate and things of that nature. So I'm sure with the students there is a higher level of participation.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I know, Katie, you have an estimate on the number of families that you think use as well.
Yeah, I kind of made mine up. So I just use I look at how much like our poundage that we've collected, and then I was just using the national average, like 4 pounds per week per person, and then I did it by households. So my average says that the average UA household would collect around 11 pounds per week. And so based on those numbers, we're somewhere between 100 and 150 households in a given collection. So
yeah, that's great. And it's hard to nail down sometimes. So
yeah,
that's good. I guess for either of you, do you have any, going through this, do you have any suggestions on what do you think really turned the corner for your usage, or how you change the plan? And okay, you both have moved your locations as they've evolved. Do you have any other insights into what makes your specific location successful that other people might be able to draw off of?
I would piggyback off of what was said earlier about having them in a location that's accessible but not necessarily open and you would just run into it. Like if you're going, it's there, and so that's the reason why you're going there. So I think that helps, because the people who participate in the program are participating because they want to. So they'll seek it out, and then that way the people who aren't participating, or just have trash or just want to mess with it or whatever, those people aren't going to seek it out, I guess. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, yeah.
With ours, it was more organic, particularly with it coming from city council directive to create the program. I'm assuming that Councilor Ragu I'm sure people were asking her about it and wanting that program. So I think that ours was kind of, as I said, it was an organic creation, and we just it was handed to us, and the statement was make it work. So thus far, it's the people who participate in it are very enthusiastic about it. With ours, we started out distributing 100 5-gallon buckets, and we added the company name is called Gamma. Gamma lids. They're snap rings that you put on top of the 5-gallon bucket, and it allows you to screw a lid onto it with airtight and watertight gaskets. We had 100 of those, printed up labels and had them applied. In less than 3 weeks, all 100 of those buckets were requested and distributed. So in the beginning, there was, I think, a pretty good base on it. With the buckets, though, we have discovered that a week's worth of food scraps in the buckets tend to be fairly heavy. So we've had some participants return the buckets, and quite bluntly, I give them a rinse, and then I leave them back out by the where the waste wheeler totes are, and they disappear fairly quickly. So it's I can't really say why it's working so well. I don't want to jinx us.
That's perfect. Obviously 2020 has been a different year across all spectrums. Do you see any coming changes for the program, or anything that you feel like our style program can evolve towards to help it better accommodate the, what we're going through now and what we'll go through in the near future.
I would say, I mean, just based on numbers for this year, I guess like 2020, I mean, they've been kind of all over the place. I mean, I think we assumed that, during quarantine and everybody was home, that we would see those numbers kind of skyrocket. And I think they've been a little bit more up and down, which I don't know what would cause that, but yeah, I mean, we applied for a grant through our solid waste district, so we're in the Central Ohio district, and so I got a grant in 2019 that covered 2020, so it was kind of perfect for us. So as we're doing budget cuts and all this other stuff, my program was safe because I was covered. We had a bunch of money from the grant that helped us. So that'll get us through this year, and then we'll roll right into 21 with it, which should be no problem. So yeah, I don't know.
With ours, it's funded from the general fund. I could do the math, but that's not going to. It's with the 8 containers, it's roughly $230 a week. So that comes out to somewhere around $12,000 for the year. And with our solid waste, I believe a while back the city manager made the comment to me that our solid waste garbage and recycling is the largest contract that the city, the highest financial contract that the city has at any point. And I believe the number's somewhere $100,000 a month. So $1,000 a month for food scraps versus $100,000, it is de minimis at best. So I don't really picture that going away, at least as long as Councilor Agu stays on City Council. And I believe that that the community has accepted and expects it. So I suspect that even upon when she moves on, stops running for office, moves on to the next step, we're still going to continue.
That's good insight. All right, well, I think we'll move on to see if there are any questions that have come in from our live stream.
I think we've got one question in terms of, for other municipalities who are considering starting a program, what are reasons you would recommend they do so? Reasons that they could use to help promote the idea into their communities.
Well, I mean, I think first and foremost, it's something you can put on your list of your sustainability efforts, right? And so it's, all the different ways that you can tell your residents or anybody else how you're going green. I would say that's a big one. And then with ours, a lot of the people that I talk to, the residents I talk to, they like participating, they like doing it because, and this sounds weird, but they love how clean their trash is every week. So they're putting out less trash, it's less funky in the summertime, just your trash is cleaner, and just, I've had a lot of people tell me that, so.
That's fun.
With us, there's the sustainability issue as well. In September of 2019, the City Council joined into the Mayor's Global Covenant of Climate and Energy. So we are, by its participation within that program, we need to come up with ways of reducing our greenhouse gas footprint. And this is one of the ways. Oxford generates at most 6,000 to 10,000 tons of recycling and garbage in any given year, and the Rumpke landfill that takes in the waste that Oxford generates takes in that amount in a day. So we're not really going to be affecting the volume or the how rapidly that landfill fills up. We're also not going to really affect too much that Rumpke at that facility, its Hughes Road facility, is capped, and they have vapor extraction, and they tell me that they're pulling out about 100,000 tons of methane a year. So while Rumpke is grumbling that we're not sending all of our food waste to them because they want the organics for their methane generation, we're not hurting their operation at all.
As the host, I have several questions, so I'm going to take a little bit of liberty here.
That's great. All right.
So tell me a little bit, I know you talked a little bit about the contamination around the containers, and it sounds like it's de minimis at best, occasional stuff on the ground, but you're able to handle that. So and nothing significant there. But what about in the containers? Have you seen or have your provider talk to you about, we're getting a little bit of contamination, or the processing where it goes to? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so with weeks, and as a part of our collection, they give us our totals, how much they collected, and then it includes pictures. So when they go to each location, they take pictures and they'll show you, hey, there was a plastic bag in this one. Our contamination rates, I think, are pretty low. But we do still find some, it's mostly, I would say mostly there's plastic bags. People using just the wrong kind of liners, or just using grocery bags or Ziploc bags, or whatever it may be. I try to visit the containers a couple times between collections, and I'll pull stuff out if I find it. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think it's plastic bags. And I've tried to combat that with obviously just education. So I have a good email list of the people that I know that signed up initially, and just constantly reminding them, no plastic bags, it has to be BPI certified. And then signage, just having signage everywhere, plastic bag with the thing through it, and just constantly reminding people, please don't use the plastic bags.
And we're not having a whole lot of issue with it. Where the containers are located, I go by there several times a day, so usually at least once a day I stop by and do a quick inspection on it. And plastic bags, we've run into some of the one that really comes to mind was a plastic or styrofoam. Somebody basically cleaned the table off, dropped it, picked it up, dropped it again. But that was only once. I know that Councilor Ragu also swings by periodically, and she's a hawk on. She has no trouble. She's a slightly built lady, and I just have visions of me going by one day with her legs sticking out. Hopefully somebody will pull her out before I get there. But we're just, we're not having that much issue with it. A while back, and I've gotten several phone calls regarding the bags that folks pick up dog droppings with. And fortunately, they are interested enough in composting, I suppose, that they want to use the biodegradable, the bio eco bag, I believe it is. That's one of the brand names. But the sources, the BPI website is a good location. It gives me a lot of information when somebody calls. The other ones that I've run into is people with coffee filters and tea bags. And about the only thing that I've run into with that is that some of the newer products are a plastic membrane. So rule of thumb that I tell people is when it's wet, if it easily tears, it's compostable. If it fights back, it's going to be a plastic. And then with the tea bags, staples and things of that nature.
Katie, you had follow up to you. You had mentioned that your collection is every other week or every 2 weeks. So tell me about odors. Any issues with every 2-week pickup or anything of that nature?
So, so we are every 2 weeks, and so you can imagine a full container in the summertime is going to get pretty funky. But if the lid is closed, you really don't know that it's there. So we don't have a problem, in the surrounding areas. We don't have problems with pests or anything like that. As long as the lid's stayed closed, you're fine. Hold your nose when you're dumping, so when you got to open the container and throw it in there, it is going to be a little bit funky in the summertime. But it's really, as far as having odors around it or anything like that, we don't have that problem. And like I said, I visit the containers. I try to go a couple times a week. In the summertime, I have found that spraying the container inside and spraying the contents just to give it a little drizzle of just household vinegar helps with smells and bugs and stuff. So
Good. One last question, and this is for actually both of you. When you started your program, did you guys provide folks with a household bucket, kind of like the one that we see here from Go Zero? Did you provide those, or how did you work that?
Yeah, so that was kind of how we did our kind of program kickoff, was to get people's attention. As you tell them, they get a free item, and they, I think much like the Oxford, our buckets were gone. We had 100 or 125, and they were gone pretty quickly. Now, how many people still use that 5-gallon bucket, I don't know, but it really, it helped kick off the program very well.
Yeah, and as I said, we the 5-gallon bucket with the screw-on lid. What we found is that lining them with an individual liner, the bags aren't tough enough to handle the threading, so that'll tear. And what I've noticed a lot of people are doing is that the bucket is outside on a porch in the garage someplace, and they have a container within the kitchen with their bag. They add their food scraps to it. When it's full, they tie it off, they take it to the bucket, they drop it, and then periodically take the bucket down with that and just pour it into the waste wheel or tote. We don't really have, again, with it being collected once a week, it really isn't particularly ripe at any given time. Insects don't seem to be a real bad issue. I've got mine set up so the lids rest on adjacent containers. I do that to try to encourage people to close it again. For the most part, it seems to be working. With ours being out in the weather or without the enclosure, we need to be a little bit concerned about wind direction. So we'll see what with this afternoon and this wind that's coming through. I'll definitely be swinging by there again. And there have been a couple of times that I've had to chase containers down across parking lots. If we've had a good wind on a Monday after they've been emptied, or Tuesday after they've been emptied, they're light enough that they definitely move.
Good. Thank you both.
So we don't have any other questions. I guess it's time to introduce Bob Nauman. He is the Program Administrator for the Ohio Department of Correction and Rehabilitation. They're the people that we partner with to make all this happen. So, Bob, come on up.
Hey, I'm Robert Nauman. I'm with the Ohio Department of Corrections. I'm the Program Administrator for all compost and recycling within our department. We started this teaming with Go Zero, where we have converted our old farms that got closed into compost sites. And what we do is it's a training program for our offenders. They learn how to compost. They get a compost operator certificate. They get CDLs. What we're trying to do is teach them how to be green in the green industry, because that's where most of the jobs are going to be here in the next 15, 20 years. Along with that, we've made an EPA lab, so they learn how to test compost, test everything. And the offenders, are very excited about this program because they're one of the highest paid jobs within the system, okay? And they get all this experience, and mostly when they get out, there's jobs waiting on them because we network with everybody, and that's part of with the municipalities that want to team up and do some of this. Some of our guys that live in your areas are very excited about getting these programs started. The offenders have at Allen, which is where the program started, have even developed, when we started up there, they found out we were wasting 33 pounds per month of food per inmate. And by working inside with them, the program, they've designed stuff within it, they've got that down to 11 pounds generated. So as the municipalities talked about their trash bills, just at one institution, we've saved almost $27,000 in a year on trash. Okay, and to relate that is our compactors, we might pull every 2 weeks. Now, where we're pulling maybe 1.5 times a week. So that's how many pounds we've taken out of our compactors. Because when you take most of your weight is your water and all that with food waste. I mean, the national average is less than a pound per day per individual. Okay, in the United States, we did, last year was almost 12 billion tons of food waste went to landfills. Okay, so if we divert this and divert it into a training program and work with everybody and complete the circle, it all be beneficial to everybody. We even have the offenders sit in on meetings with our solid waste districts on ideas on how to curb some of the stuff and develop new things, information that go out to tell the community what is compostable. I can tell you, Arlington, Upper Arlington, your most contaminant is aluminum foil. Whereas we get blue trash bags from you in Oxford. So, I mean, what's that?
Really?
Yeah. Our offenders go through this stuff that much and document it. They're doing all the EPA paperwork and all that. They're all trained on that. So that's where the program, we relay that information to Jameson or Dave, and that's where we know the contamination. But we know when you're on the list at Upper Arlington, we're going to have some aluminum foil in that. So whether you guys cook more with aluminum foil,
I will work on that for you.
but we get 1 or 2 blue bags every time Oxford comes in.
So that's undoubtedly from one household.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's how these guys have traced this, and that's the advantage of this program. We're not abusing them. I mean, they are actually learning. For when they get out, they can be productive citizens, or restored citizens as we call them. So I mean, there's a weight to get into this program. We take 4 or 5 in. We've actually have, in the last 1.5 years, produced more certified compost operators than OSU has out of Worcester in the same time. We've almost doubled how many. They let us, I teach the courses, and OSU certified. So in other words, they get a certificate from OSU that can be brought to you guys as example that they're working. So, any of you guys have any questions for us?
I've got a question, unless there's anything on the stream. I think that it would be helpful to describe how the composting process actually works. There's food waste that shows up on site, and then what happens?
Well, when it shows up on site, they determine the carbon nitrogen ratio of what's in the waste dropped on the ground. We have, instead of mowing some of our ground, went to baling it. So that's our carbon source. And by going to a type of hay, Allen, we've planted Albion rye and medium red clover, which now generates a tremendous compost results test. It's so much better because we're bringing the nitrogen in. That's where the red clover is bringing the nitrogen into that sample and all that. So we are on an aerobic system on pipes. We're indoors. The offenders determine the moisture content every day of the piles. If it needs to add water to it, we add water, and that's how we control the smell. You can go within 5 feet of our piles and never really know there's compost there. For any municipality that wants to and is interested in this and wants to see this, work through Dave. And I know with the COVID situation in our institutions is kind of hard right now, but we'll take and give you a tour of what we do, and it won't be done by me. The offenders give the tours, okay? They've actually given the tour to the director of the EPA on when we opened up London. We've got 2 facilities open now for commercial. One partnered with Go Zero, the other's partnered with Barnes Nursery out of Huron, Ohio. That's who does the Allen. At Allen, we're doing a lot more industrial waste of food because a lot of it comes out of bungies, and that's coming with this new more healthy hamburger that we're eating of veggies. Is they make the glue for all the products to hold it together. So, and it's out of soybeans. So we get a lot more of that waste in up there than what we get from Dave. Dave's bringing us the household waste and all that. Within his waste, probably 10 or 15% of the weight is a carbon source. Work with your schools, is that's what I highly recommend for the solid waste districts and municipalities, because Hilliard City Schools is one example. What they divert is unreal. I don't have the weights on it because I haven't sat down and figured it up, but do you have some idea, Dave?
Not offhand. We've got those numbers though. You can dig them up.
I
Somebody's
mean,
interested.
what he's done up there is tremendous, and that's working through SWACO, and he's actually trying to take this to more schools and develop it, and we're trying to push that way too. Because if you can cut this waste out of landfills, you know, I was told by the 2 big solid waste districts we work with, their job working as the head of solid waste is to put themselves out of business by going green. I mean, yes, they get their money from the landfills, but yes, we don't need to put it in the landfills. So, I mean, that's what we need. That's what we've got to do. If you have any questions, if you want tours, let Dave know or me, and we will work it through. And like I said, the offenders will give you the tours, and you'll see the enthusiasm they have for this program. We've even done the bucket idea, and the offenders did it at Allen. It's 2 different institutions, Allen and Oakwood. The Oakwood, which is medium or lower security, had put buckets of their own inside with at their cells or locks. And they are diverting what they buy at the commissary out to us. So, I mean, the program works. Work with Dave, he's great to work with. Solid waste districts are great to work with. So, that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. Joe, you want to wrap this up?
To kind of bring this to a conclusion, and Dave's going to have some closing remarks, but I wanted to talk a little bit about our grant program here in Montgomery County. And again, I know that our solid waste districts around the area may also have grant programs that they can possibly provide similar funding, but we have two grants, actually three, that really can address the food waste issue. One is we have a district incentive grant, and currently that grant is $200,000 a year. We're looking at increasing that in the future in 2021, pending approval. But that particular grant is specifically related to waste reduction recycling programs, which from our standpoint, food waste, and Go Zero, close your ears just for a second, but our focus on our grant, number one focus for food waste is, of course, reduction. We want to help educate people on the reduction of food scraps and actually generating them in the first place through better purchasing mechanisms and through share programs, food share programs, either with our local food banks or those types of places. However, we also recognize the fact that many people are still going to generate these scraps, whether it be restaurants or homes or schools or what have you. So we do have a program for communities that if they want to set up a drop-off program, and actually, thank you to the City of Oxford, because I contacted Dave. He may not remember this conversation, but you did tell me that I could use your, basically your program guidelines that were online, and I put them in our grant as an example of how to kind of put a program together, and I thought David's program was very useful. There's some financial information that we have in our grant packet that provides an appendices for that to give the community some ideas. So that's one grant. The other grant is actually for the private sector who goes out and collects this material, and it's called our New Service Grant. So any business that has a recycling program or a food waste program, whether it be single stream recycling, corrugated recycling, or food waste, we will pay for the first year of that collection cost at no cost to the business. They sign a 3-year contract, so years 2 and 3 they will pay for, but the first year to get the program started, we will take care of that cost. We are also looking at increasing that grant program just because of the high demand, and the actual, when we did a cost analysis on it, that's actually on a cost per ton basis our best performing program. So we're getting a lot of material, and the cost of collection is not high. So we're really pleased with that. So we're looking at putting a little bit of extra dollars into that program. The last one then is our capital grant, and that is for buying basically capital products such as in-vessel composting, screeners for compost, and we have had some folks apply for those types of equipment, and we've awarded them grants for those. So that particular grant is open to both nonprofits, communities, and also business. Mainly it focuses on the private sector and nonprofits. They're the ones who have applied for that because our municipalities can apply for that same type of material through the district incentive grant. So that kind of covers our grant program. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave for kind of a wrap up.
Perfect. Thanks, John. I did happen to looking on the stream. It does look like there are a couple good questions coming through. If we don't get to them in the context of the stream, we'll be sure to address those after the fact. The questions I saw were, one was annual cost. You know, for openers, it can start as low as about $100 a month. Typically, programs more advisable to come in somewhere closer to $250 a month. And that's per location, that you can then multiple locations and ladder up from there. When we do start services, we do start on a usage-based pilot program where if in the first few times not every cart's getting used, you only pay for what you use. And so it's a kind of thing where if we set out 3 carts but there's only 1 cart that gets any material put in it, programs typically start off a little bit slower, but like I say, buckets fly out the door the first number of weeks. there's some different things we can do there. So hopefully that answers that question. Apologize for not having caught that until just now. Also want to make sure that I underline the fact that, just like in Montgomery County, solid waste districts around the state, there are typically programming. It's a little bit different county to county, but it's the sort of thing that we'd love to get a chance to help you get connected. Usually if you Google for your solid waste district, there's programs much like what's going on in Montgomery County where, composting tends to fall under the umbrella of recycling. Effectively that's what we're doing, is we're recycling organic material. So there's a lot of good programs out there. If you're interested, hit us up in the stream. I want to make sure to underline gozero.org is a really great way to get a hold of us by email. Gozero.org. Our phone number is 844-467-0746. Oh gosh, it's on the cards. Look us up online. We'll go from there. But I think that was a lot of what we had left. Was there anything else in the stream? Are we able to see in the Facebook Live? Is there any outstanding questions we can speak to? Really grateful for your time. I think we're wrapping up a little bit sooner than we thought we would. But man, if there's anything out there on the internet people want to know about, I think I saw a question about Westerville's contamination. They typically do pretty well. Jameson, as the guy who morning over morning is to take a look at those notes, the pictures that are sent, things like this. Can you speak to Westerville? Westerville does quite well.
Westerville does. Community. Yeah, Westerville does quite well. I think all of our communities really do pretty well. Mm-hmm. The offenders, they do a great job of doing a deep dive and seeing what's in there and being able to trace it back. From my side, kind of what we see if there is municipal waste, and I've seen it from Westerville occasionally, is someone will drop an entire bag of recyclables because they get confused, and they'll put a whole bag of magazines or a box of magazines or a whole bag of cans or a whole bag of plastic bottles. And it's a one-time, I put it in there kind of thing. So by and large, our municipal programs really do run a very clean operation.
Perfect. That's great. Is there anything on the stream? If not, that's okay. We can absolutely follow up. Yeah, I think in closing, thanks for dialing in on the morning. Super grateful to have you. If you got registered for the webinar ahead of time, we'll be following up with some additional information. We're really excited about trying to do a better job with education and training. Kind of back to our origin, we were hearing people say, if we only had somebody to haul it away. And then we heard, what kind of programs do you have for residential needs? And today, one of the things we're hearing is that there's a real demand out there. We're hearing very often, there's an interest in getting help and support and knowing how to set up a municipal drop-off station, or getting help and support in knowing how to retrofit a commercial kitchen to do composting, or getting help and support in terms of even understanding how to educate a community or somebody's boss as to why composting matters. So we're looking forward. The future's bright. And hoping to be able to help with some of those training and coaching types of needs. Look us up online again, gozero.org, and if you're registered, we'll be planning to follow up with some additional materials to help you get started. Thanks so much. Grateful for your time. Don't be a stranger. Be safe out there. Thanks.